free at last. Free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last as the Saints finally fire Dennis Allen after losing their 7th straight game in the NFL, the worst streak since 1999. And let's just start with off the top. This was a move that was needed. That is not breaking news to anybody. I'm actually shocked that the Saints went out and did this. I was carrying along on my Monday morning, fully accepting my fate of the fact that Dennis Allen was still going to be here. And Mickey Loomis was going to find a way to insufferably smack his gum up at the podium and bring out his Bill Belichick and his Chuck Noll and every other coach's record that compared to Dennis Allen when he wasn't. So when the Saints actually did this, I was shocked. Gayle Benson actually does care about this team. When you lose to the worst team in the NFL, you become the worst team in the NFL when you're on the longest losing streak in the league, or just about. You're currently holding the 3rd overall pick. So clearly I'm elated about that. I'm ecstatic. The Saints have not moved on from a coach in well over 20 years. The last coach to actually leave, I think it was Jim Mora. He resigned in the middle of the year. And then before that, the Saints just aren't a team that lets go of coaches in the middle of the year. So the Saints are acknowledging that it's time to move on. The Saints are acknowledging that they can no longer stay in the Sean Payton and Drew Brees era of kicking the can down the road. But that's not the only step. But I kind of want to break down the game a little bit, even though it's not super worth it. Throw you some of the stats. We'll talk about Mickey Loomis. We'll talk about the interim head coach and really kind of everything that's going on with the Saints right now. But let's just call it what it is, right? It could not have gotten any worse. There was no longer room to look beyond the results when you just lost to the worst team in the league and Bryce Young. And again, Dennis Allen was continuing to find new ways to lose football games. The Saints ran 24 more plays than the Panthers. They outgained Carolina by almost 200 yards. They had more first downs, less punts, no turnovers. They won time of possession by almost 10 minutes, and they lost. Oh, wait, you had 10 penalties for over 100 yards. Here's an even better one. Teams were 275-0 when outgaining opponents by 150 plus yards, running for 150 plus yards, and winning the turnover battle. But thanks to good old Derek Carr and Dennis Allen, thankfully he is a former employee of the New Orleans Saints, that record is now 275-1, thanks to your beloved New Orleans Saints. Derek Carr also being paired with the most perennial loser ever in NFL history. Dennis Allen had the worst head coaching winning percentage of any NFL head coach in the last 3 decades that coached at least 70 games, 33% winning percentage, and he can never beat a winning team, and he can never situationally coach. But not only that, there's a new record in town for the Saints. Derek Carr becomes the first quarterback to lose to 31 NFL teams, and he has the chance to become the first to lose to all 32 teams at home playing for the Saints against his former Raiders 4 days after Christmas in New Orleans on December 29th, 2024. Dennis Allen has now been fired midseason twice, with Derek Carr at his quarterback both times, so I hope that speaks volumes to Mickey Loomis and Gayle Benson. Again, Dennis Allen, I'll proudly say it. He was the worst head coach in NFL history over the last 30 years that had coached at least 70 games. So looking beyond the results was no longer an option. It was no longer an option. I mean, the end of the first half, the Saints can't even manage a 1-minute drill to get points with timeouts in their back pocket. Even the announcers were confused. You have Jay Feely on the broadcast, a former NFL kicker, saying nothing the Saints did right there made sense. Why would they do that? Why would they not take a timeout? Because it's the Saints. Because it was Dennis Allen. Because it was the group of athletes that he was continuously putting out on that field. And it was inexcusable. It was undeniable. And you could no longer look beyond the results. It was now back-to-back games of ineptitude with clock management. Top it all off, you need 4 yards to keep the game alive, and you throw a low percentage go ball, just basically praying for a pass interference at that point. Game was over. We'll forever remember it as the play that Dennis Allen was let go. That was the play that got Dennis Allen fired. God bless Alvin Kamara, man. Leading rusher and receiver for the team. 35 touches, over 200 yards. I mean, no complaints about Alvin Kamara. Every Saints fan for the rest of Alvin Kamara's tenure with this franchise should literally get on their knees and bow and thank him for re-signing with the New Orleans Saints. Because we could have shipped him out and got picks. In a messed up way, I wish we would have, because the rebuild now hopefully is finally beginning. It was time to scrape it. And we started. Real quick, I want to give a shout out, a prayer, good vibes for Chris Olave, because he might need to consider retiring. We do get the news today that Chris Olave actually has decided to take some extended time away from the team in football, not away from the team, but he's not in a rush. There's no decision on his media or long-term future. But with him suffering 4 confirmed concussions in the NFL and 1 in college, he has now had 5 concussions since the year 2020, dating back to when he was an Ohio State Buckeye. He's been knocked out cold 3 times with his concussions between college football and the NFL. We've even seen him clear the concussion protocol stupidly. Shout out Ochsner Health. I don't really know if that's the case. I'm just a salty Saints fan. We've seen him clear the protocol a couple times before and play the next game after suffering a concussion. You got Josh Olave on Twitter, Chris's brother, just saying it isn't worth it with the New Orleans Saints. And honestly, at this point, with where the team's at, when you're the worst team in the league, when you're one of the worst organizations in the league, yeah, you might not exactly be the Panthers front office or the Giants front office or I don't know, the Patriots front office, but you're bad. You're the worst team in the NFL. You're on a 7-game losing streak. You haven't lost this bad since Katrina, and before that, you hadn't lost this bad since the turn of the century. And we know that the culture is cooked with the New Orleans Saints. Let's not even try to disguise it. I mean, you got Michael Thomas going off on Twitter on Derek Carr after the hospital ball that he threw to Chris Olave. You had Kalen Saunders saying, hell, throw me in at quarterback. Let's get something, worth watching, something worth, laughing at, or whatever the hell he said. I don't even want to commit that tweet to memory, because the culture is just eroding with the New Orleans Saints. When you have a guy in Kalen Saunders saying to put him in at quarterback so it would be worth watching, it's cooked. And you didn't see any of the coaches going after any of these players when it happened. You didn't hear anything in the media. And that might be something more that you keep in-house for the New Orleans Saints. Cam Jordan tweeting, we just lost to the Panthers. He really had higher hopes. He wanted more for the fans. He was genuinely sorry. Kalen Saunders saying at this point, I just want to go 500. I mean, the culture it was absolutely cooked for the New Orleans Saints. And there's no question about it, which is exactly why it was time to get look at Nick Underhill. He just dropped an exclusive interview with Mickey Loomis. I'll definitely be watching that, possibly. Maybe try and pick it apart, but not sure, because at this point, we know Mickey Loomis needs to go. And that's the next point that I'm getting into, because he's the one that's been restructuring these contracts. He's the one that's historically whiffed on all the drafts outside of 2017. And he had a lucky moment with, Brian Bresee. And obviously we brought in Pete Warner, and Alontae Taylor was a solid pick as well, but he really has not drafted very well since that 2017 year. We saw him kicking the can down the road with the contracts, writing bad contracts with veteran players. So we just know exactly what it is and how we really can't trust anything he says. It's almost worth not even digging into what he says because of how inept he is. How inept he actually is at the podium. Honestly, I'm trying to find. Okay, here we go. Mickey Loomis on firing Dennis Allen on WWL radio. I think Dennis Allen is a fantastic football coach. He was a great defensive coordinator. And I think anybody in our league who would talk about him thinks he's a fantastic football coach. He is, I think, in this case, look, the circumstances created the record. Yeah. Don't say you can look beyond the results either, Mickey. Do not say that, because your guy that you employed as a perennial loser with an elite losing quarterback were the circumstances. Yes, we understand injuries, but don't sit here and act like Dennis Allen over the last 2.5 years with the Saints has not had his own boneheaded decisions, to where if this team wasn't 2-7, hell, if they were 4-6, 5-5, DA keeps his job, but DA situational coaching couldn't get us to that point. So yeah, the circumstances created this. That's just the truth. And a lot of people don't want to hear it. No, we do want to hear you admit it, Mickey. We do want you to admit that this team is not on the track that it should be, and that Dennis Allen was not the right coach. And the owner went around your silly self, interviewed the players, sat down with the players to what was figuring out. Multiple people told them that Dennis Allen was the problem, so they let him go. Silly things like players not parking in their parking spots, blah, blah, blah. We've got 100 more employees than we had 10 years ago, whatever. This is impressive that he knows this. Going into this last game, we were the 8th fewest penalties in the league. That's more of a comment on discipline than where a player parks, for crying out loud. This is a part that gets me, y'all. But it's just right back to what stares at you right in the face is what we've had, and abnormal amount of injuries, including to our quarterback, and we haven't been able to overcome that. And so here's the part that gets me, guys. And so that puts pressure and stress on the organization, and ultimately it was cause for a change. I understand you're trying to let your boy down easy, Mickey, because he's going to hear the reports. By the way, John knows that Dennis Allen texted the team to inform them of his firing. That's just Dennis Allen in a nutshell. Look, I get it. He was a great defensive coordinator. He was behind that Saints defense, the best Saints defense we've seen in years. It really in the history of, arguably of the team. The NFL record for, most straight games without a 100-yard rusher. All that came under Dennis Allen. So I'm not going to sit here and act like he didn't serve a purpose to the city. He was just a very, 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 very bad head coach. And it's about time that maybe if not Mick wants to recognize it, then Miss Benson did. But for him to say that the injuries put pressure on the organization, so it was time for a change, that exact statement is exactly why Mickey Loomis still needs to go. Because you think injuries were the only reason why you had to fire your coach, not his 26-53 record, not his 18-25, 35, 45, whatever record he had with the New Orleans Saints, not his 33% winning percentage, not his horrible situational coaching leaving points on the board. It was the injuries. Okay. I'm not going to continue to sit here and complain every week about Mickey Loomis, even though that is what I do, and Dennis Allen and Mickey Loomis and complaining about them on the show. But look, one pin has fallen, which is great. But I'm glad Mickey made those statements because it just confirms that he's still the bad apple in the building as well. I mean, it just is what it is. He's the bad apple in the building. And if you think injuries put the stress and the pressure on the organization, and that's why change had to be made. No. Your players were saying the locker room had been lost. Your players had almost quit on this Dennis Allen defense. Let's just call it what it is. So it wasn't the injuries, Mick. It was the fact that your buddy was horrible. Your buddy was horrible. From what I've heard, none of these upcoming quarterbacks are super great. We'll roll with Rattler the rest of the season. Then in the draft, get a young running back, wide receiver, and tight end, and give Rattler a season without Team U players. Then in 2026, it's annihilate for Arch. Well, I think the quarterbacks coming into this one are decent, man. You got Quinn Ewers. You got Cam Ward. You got Shedeur Sanders. Those are really the only three that, super stick out to me off the top. But I don't, all the other ones I'm not really a fan of. I don't know if they'll, be NFL draft eligible. But yes, the Saints finally fired Dennis Allen after losing the 7th straight game, the worst streak since 1999. We know as Saints fans it couldn't get any worse. I was shocked. I'm glad because this owner does care about this team. She was treading. She still might be the worst owner in the NFL just with how she's let things go on. I hate to talk about the owner of my team like that, but it was time to put a stop to the bleeding. It was time for this to stop. And it did. And one domino has fallen.